We can get started. I think we have enough people, right? Okay. Call to order is just me saying call to order. Let's do a roll call. Starting over here.
Ryan Russell.
Jordan Sullivan.
Kevin Burford.
Andrew Lewis.
Deanna Thoman.
Nicole Villanueva.
Margaret Beck.
Awesome. Moving on to public discussion of anything not on the agenda. Okie doke. Okay, to certificates of appropriateness, starting with 1221 Sheridan Avenue.
Okay, thank you. Ann Russett, Senior Planner. I'm going to be presenting this case. Let's see, I just need to share my screen. Hang on one second. Okay, this first item is located at 1221 Sheridan Avenue. It's located in the Longfellow Historic District. Here is the front of the house. This home is a single-story, minimal traditional home. Here's the location of the property, which shows the proposed addition in the red rectangular box and the existing garage in this small square here, and here's the existing footprint of the home. This is the east elevation of the home, and this addition, or this side of the home will not be changing as part of this project. Here is the existing west elevation, and this is where the applicant is proposing the new addition to the home. I'm just going to go through the plans. And this is the plans for the addition. You can see here, this is the existing home as it is today. Right in this area here, there's the existing garage. And this is the proposed addition on the west side of the home. I just want to note a few things. The proposal includes keeping the 4 original corners of the home, which are located in this location, over here, down here, and to the west here. The addition is proposed to be set in from those existing walls. And they are proposing to convert this garage space to living space here in this location. Here are the north and west elevations. The plans show that they are incorporating windows that match the type and size of the historic windows. The addition is also simple and formed to complement the minimal traditional home. Even though the garage is being converted to living space, they are keeping the appearance of a garage door from the exterior and proposing an appropriate new garage door. Here's the east elevation, which is not changing. And on the south, they are adding more windows. All of the sides of the addition incorporate new windows. And here's just the 3D image of the proposal. I've copied in the guidelines if we need to refer to these. I wasn't going to go through these, but I did want to mention the exceptions. Section 3.2 of the guidelines allow for the commission to incorporate some flexibility into proposals. They may consider exceptions for uncommon situations. And the intent of exceptions is to allow alternative designs due to exceptional circumstances. In approving an exception, the commission must identify the guideline for which an exception is being made and the rationale for the exception. And in this case, in the guidelines for additions, one of the recommendations is that you place the building addition at the rear of the property if possible. And that is not possible in this case, so we are recommending approval with an exception. The rationale being that the addition to the rear is not possible, and the home is approximately 10 feet from the property line. Here's the aerial that shows this. So this is the front of the home here. And so a rear addition would typically be in this location here. But the property, the home is about 10 feet from the southern property line, so there's no room, but there is plenty of room to the west. So staff is recommending approval of this certificate of appropriateness as presented in the staff report. through an exception to the guidelines, allowing an addition to the side of the home due to the lot configuration that does not allow a rear addition, subject to two conditions. One, window and door product is approved by staff, and that historic siding and trim configuration is documented and reviewed by staff. And that's all I have.
Awesome. Next is, if anyone, if the
Questions of
owner would like to
staff?
comment, right?
Yeah, if you have any questions for staff, and then
Gotcha.
Could we have a look at the guidelines?
Sure. And staff found that they meet all of these guidelines. The one that is not met is the one specific to the placement of the addition.
Burford has a question. Are the new proposed garage doors practical? Do they open and shut, or are they just there for appearance?
I think they're there for appearance.
We've seen an example of that before, correct? Yeah. And we approved it. Okay.
And can we see the aerial again too, the aerial image, the outline? So I'm just trying to visualize. Yeah. So if they went to the backside of the house, that would not be sufficient enough space. And is that according to guidelines that the city has for construction? Or is that just a desired feeling that there isn't enough space back there for what they want?
They would need to maintain a 5-foot setback from the southern property line. So the home is approximately 10 feet from that southern property line. So they pretty much only have 5 feet for an addition, which isn't practical.
5 feet, and then I'm trying to visualize too, how wide is the house back there?
Oh, the applicant, the architect is here if you have questions. I'm not sure the width of the house, the existing home.
All of this is new?
It's
That is
essentially like the garage is existing. Essentially this portion here.
So I'm curious, would you say that with this addition, we're approximately doubling the size of the house?
I think it's less than double.
Okay.
It's significant.
And the house is very small to begin with, so staff finds that the proposed addition is proportionate to what's already there, and it's a simple addition to match that existing home.
Have any other questions? No? Okay. Next would be owner or comments, if you would like to comment. If you could sign in as well, that would be great.
Sure. My name is Luke McLaren. I am the homeowner. My wife and I own this home with our young son, who will be 2 in May. Honestly, we love the neighborhood. We feel like we found a great place. We hope we can watch him walk to school there. We can walk back and forth with him. This just lets us grow our family a little bit and continue to grow and stay in a neighborhood that we love. And I think it's going to be great for us. So I hope it's something you guys can support and help us do. Thank you.
Okay. And do we commission discussion, or do we need to have a motion? To
Maybe
do that
other
first?
testimony. We'll see if anyone else wants to speak.
Sure.
Hi, Mike Nolan, Horizon Architecture. We're the project architect. I think that it's pretty straightforward, the guidelines, and we design well within the historic preservation guidelines. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I think just a clarification on, we did look at going to the south. We would only be able to get about 5 feet. In addition, I think Ann pointed out, we wanted to preserve the historic four corners of the property. Anything that we did that would move to the south side of the property, we would pretty much run afoul of the other massing guidelines for the addition. So with the property the way it is, it's really kind of odd because the frontage on the street off of Sheridan, it's pushed further to the side street, so there's not really any room. So it's almost like the backyard is a front yard. Plus, we have a corner lot to deal with. So we feel like that this is the most historically sensitive way to approach the addition.
Yeah, I think the main concern is always with exceptions, just making sure that we're not opening up to too many ways to make an exception for something and then opening a door for precedent and things like that. But
Totally understand. I think
But yeah.
this is technically infeasible to move to the back of the property. So.
well, yeah, with this much space, sure.
What year is the home again? When was it originally built?
1941.
41? Okay.
Could we see a photo of the home again? Just curious. Okay.
Questions from us? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I imagine we need a motion for something and then commission discussion after that. If anyone wants to move.
Salagrun, I move to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 1221 Sheridan Avenue as presented in the staff report through an exception to the guidelines allowing an addition to the side of the home due to the lot configuration that does not allow a rear addition, subject to the following conditions. 1, window and door product is approved by staff. 2, historic siding and trim configuration is documented and reviewed by staff.
Beck seconds.
Okay. Commission discussion?
Burford, it seems though the project is well within the spirit of the guidelines, if not to the precise letter. So, and it's not as if it's a symmetrical structure that's going to be thrown off kilter. So I would be in support of it.
I feel the same way. I think that, assuming the exterior elements were matched and approved by staff as much as possible, I think it, given the spirit of exceptions for this specific purpose of the restrictive property lines, I don't see why this shouldn't be approved. It seems accommodating and understandable.
I'm kind of fixed on the charm of the home as it is. It's a 1941 home. Small homes were built around that time. I really regret that I didn't go walk by this home and take a look at it just in the surrounding neighborhood. And I guess to my eyes, it almost looks like you're from the street, from the sidewalk, it almost looks like you're doubling the size of the home. But I realize this is a difficult lot. There isn't space in the back, so I'm considering those things too.
I walk by that home a lot.
Do you?
And yeah, and I think the recommended addition, it's going to fit in really well, and it's going to work seamlessly with that neighborhood and especially that street. So, for me, that's not a concern at all with the rest of the character of that neighborhood.
I'm glad you know it. Thank you.
I guess a concern, not concern, a thing that came up looking at it is you end up with the garage being just in the middle of the house,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
does feel a little odd. I don't know if that's necessarily it's symmetrical in that there's but it's not where garages tend to go. But at the same time, I do agree with the fact of you're trying to work with a difficult lot. It will look like things like that. So that would be my only thought, but I don't know that way.
I mean, they're doing that to follow the guidelines. Unless you wanted to make another exception that they didn't need to make.
No, I agree with that. I'm not mad at that. It's just a That's my only hiccup, but I don't think it's a big hiccup. It's like UP hiccup, not OUGH hiccup.
I have personal feelings about maintaining an unused garage door simply for appearances when it could be a functional like window opening instead. I personally, I could care less about preserving a garage door when it's not a garage. That's how I feel. I don't know where that lands, but
That would be that's one of our guidelines too, right?
That is
Not
a
a building guideline. Okay.
I kind of am confused because it looks like there will be 3 different levels to the front of the house, right? So the addition isn't equal to the other side of the garage that exists. It's set farther back, so there'll be this one, this, and then this. And so that seems weird to me as just looking at the house from the front. But
assuming the horizontal lines.
the lines look the
Maybe
same
back.
across.
Like
yeah.
depth level.
Yes, the depth
I
level
gotcha.
of
Okay. I was like,
the
wait.
front of it.
So yeah, part of that is the fact that the house form itself is basically a rectangle with the front gable that projects and then the garage that projects further. And so it's set in from actually that
Oh, the gate.
the main
gable.
box
Okay.
of the rectangle.
Can you show us that?
Front picture.
Partly so that it does look further back. So that the main body of the house kind of takes precedent.
So the 4 corners are preserved.
And that's fitting with what we would do if on the back of the house, just we're doing it.
You know, if it was not set in as far on that side on the front,
Yeah.
then, you know, it would compete more with the form.
Yeah.
Well, that's I noticed as being weird.
Yeah.
So, you know, an elevation drawing flattens things out.
Sure.
You know, it's harder to see that one part of it is back further, but it is set back further than even the front rectangle, you know, that wall with the windows in it.
Yeah. Now, Andy, you saying that the garage looks like it's the center of the home and it's a little garage, it's a little different, but I am trusting Nicole's.
Oh, wow.
Well, no, I am. I mean, you live in that neighborhood, you
Yeah.
walk by the home, you know, you have a feel for
Fits
what
and
would
doesn't,
work.
yeah. Other discussion? Do we feel comfortable with me saying let's vote on things? Okay. What am I supposed to say? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All those opposed? Cool. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to 203 North Lynn Street.
Okay, thank you. This next certificate of appropriateness is for 203 North Lynn Street. This map shows the location. This is actually a local historic landmark. It's not within a district. Here is the eastern facade of the building. The building is a 3-story mid-19th century Greek Revival building that was built around 1862, and it has an addition that more than doubled it in 1893. It's listed in the National Register of Historic Places in addition to being a local historic landmark. A section of the nomination that outlines the building's significance is included in the staff report, and I just wanted to highlight a few of the items here. It's significant as a rare surviving commercial property type in Iowa City. It's characterized by a size and scale larger than most of its contemporaries. The nomination notes that it's not a narrow attached storefront catering to retail customers in the downtown, and it's also not an industrial or commercial business located at the edge of town where access by rail or wagon would be common. Instead, it's located near mixed residential and retail blocks where walking was the primary means of getting around. The owner is proposing to add a secondary entrance along the North Lynn Street facade. Some of the goals from this application include breaking up the size of the commercial space into 2 commercial spaces on the first floor. And another goal is to renovate the residential units that occupy the 2nd and 3rd story of the building. The applicant has provided 2 plan sets that I wanted to walk through. This is version 1. So this is the Lynn Street side over here. And in this version, the new storefront would be along that eastern North Lynn Street facade. It is accessed through concrete stairs and a landing. The new door would lead into an interior vestibule, which you can see here. From the vestibule, there's access to the commercial space, which is shown here, and then access to the residential units above via these stairs. Based on the renovations that are envisioned for the second and third story residential units would require another access, and that's why they have added this staircase in this location here. Here is the east elevation on the left, and the new entrance is proposed at the center of the north half of the building. So this is the north half of the building here, and the storefront is proposed in the center of that addition. In version 2, the proposed secondary entrance is shown with steps leading directly to a vestibule in this location here, also on Northland Street. In this plan, the vestibule is not enclosed but exposed to the outside. It's also in a different location on the facade. From this vestibule, there would be, again, access to the commercial space and then access to the residential units on the second and third floor via this staircase. And here is the elevation on the left. You can see with this version, the location of the new entrance aligns with the rhythm of the facade, and the corner entrance more so than the first version. So it's kind of in the front of this addition, which is similar in location to that corner entrance that exists. And here's a 3D rendering of version 2. Here are the two versions side by side. In our review of this application, we requested that the applicant explore modifying the southern facade along Market Street. And we requested this for a couple of reasons. We know that the southern facade has been altered. Alterations to the southern facade could include a new storefront door and new windows to bring light into the space. There's also an existing ramp that we thought could potentially be used for an accessible entrance. We met with the applicant earlier this week, and he expressed that the southern facade was not an option, and I would imagine that he will go into some of those details later with the commission. Here's just another photograph of the southern facade. Another reason we wanted them to explore the south is that we didn't find any evidence that a second storefront ever existed on the east facade. Based on the Sanborn maps, we know that 2 uses did exist on the first floor. However, both uses were accessed through that corner entrance. You can see in this Sanborn map from 1899, there's the bakery here, and then a restaurant to the north, and you access the restaurant through the bakery through an opening in the wall. And similarly, that was the case when it was a hotel in the 20s. The guidelines that we used for this review are the Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. Some things to keep in mind as you consider this application include the new use should require minimal changes to distinctive material. Removal of distinctive material should be avoided. Also, distinctive features should be preserved. Exterior alterations will not destroy historic material or features. I also want to note, similar to the last item, that the commission does have the ability to consider exceptions to the guidelines as well for uncommon situations. And I guess I just wanted to also say that staff sees many benefits to this project as well. The applicant would be working to get that first floor commercial space occupied with new businesses. What we have heard from the downtown district is that the larger commercial spaces are especially difficult to lease because people need smaller spaces. So this would create 2 smaller spaces that may be easier to lease than the one large one. The applicant is also looking at renovating the second and third floor and converting the single-room occupancy units to actual dwelling units on the second and third floor and providing another access, another egress to get in and out of the building in case of an emergency. We do have some outstanding questions that we would like some time to work through with the applicant. If the commission is open to another storefront along North Lynn Street, we could work with the applicant on some modifications to the versions that we went through. There's also some improvements that are going to need to be made in the right-of-way to provide access to the building. The staircase that you saw or the landing, all of that would be in the public right-of-way, which needs to be approved by our Public Works Department. So we'd like some more time to work that out. And depending on the direction that the applicant goes, the access to the storefront may need to be accessible. So that's something that we'd like to work through as well. So due to the items that we'd like some more time to work with the applicant on, staff is requesting that this item be deferred. And I guess we would just ask the commission for some feedback on how the commission feels about an additional storefront on North Lynn Street and considering an exception, and staff can work with the applicant on that moving forward. So I'll turn it back to the chair. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have comments from the owner, contractor?
I guess
Do we
any
have questions?
questions
Do we have
for
any
staff?
Yeah.
Are there currently residences up on the second and third floor?
They're I would describe it as single room occupancy. They're not
Studios?
technically dwelling units with bathrooms and kitchens. There's no kitchen.
Okay.
That's just shared bathrooms and living space.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So in making those renovations, I'm sorry, is a new entrance required if those updates are made?
That's our understanding from the building department.
The city's
Yeah,
building?
yeah.
There's not currently there's an entrance on the south side.
There is.
And
And
then
that's
there's
currently
no
what the
longer-
residents are using?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's no other exit, like an emergency exit or anything like that?
I thought there was an exit maybe on the west side. Fire escapes.
Okay.
How many doors are currently on the building? How many exits currently? 1, 2, 3, 4.
And there's also one on the west side as well. I don't have a
Those
photograph
6?
of the west side, but
Those 6 total? No, I'm sorry.
I think
that's
5.
west, and then 4
4 on the south,
on the south.
and 1 around the west side.
there's one here as well. And that's on the west side.
Just to be clear, if we get to a point where we feel like there needs to be a case for an exception, our commission doesn't come up with the exception. Like it would be developed and presented to us.
Yes.
Okay.
And just also the last part of I'm going to say presentation, but the last part of what you were talking about is that we don't have there's a lot of ifs still.
Yes.
We don't have there's at least 3 I heard, right? Of we need to figure out if there is going to be a right of way issue, and I think that was accessibility, right? So okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. The last thing was working with them on revising the plans.
Okay. Okay.
So really, tonight is just kind of a feeler for how this commission feels about.
This.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my vibe too. Any other questions for staff from the commission?
Yeah.
So this, obviously, I've eaten in the restaurant that was there before and the one before that. So the information you said about smaller spaces are easier to lease, and that's coming from the
downtown district.
district. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll.
Maybe we can discuss.
Well, yeah, I have.
I think we want to wait until the.
Yeah, and I guess just to clarify what staff is recommending, we are recommending deferral
Right.
if
Yeah.
the commission agrees with that. But in addition to that, we would like kind of some of your thoughts on the additional storefront entrance on the east side.
Sure.
Before going on to do time and effort to do a
Yes.
thing. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Does the commission have any more questions for staff? What a sentence. Okay, cool. Do we have any comments from the owner? Yep. If you could sign in, that'd be great.
Yeah, hi, I'm Peter Byler. Just to introduce myself, I'm the woodshop teacher at City High School, and my wife and I were able to buy this building a couple months ago now. I have a presentation that I wanted to show you guys. I'm confused about what's going on right now, so maybe we can figure that out. I would like an approval of this second entrance tonight.
I don't think that's going to happen.
So can I just give you my presentation?
Sure.
And then if you say, no, the entrance can't happen, that's one way you can go. But I'd like to just walk you through sort of from my point of view. Is there any way I can control this or no?
Just tell me when to move slides, and then I will do that. I need to share it. Hang on one second. Okay. Okay.
So yeah, go ahead and move slides. Thank you. So this is our building. Just to give you a little bit of the history of it, some of you know, like Commissioner Russell said, he's eaten at Goosetown and Northside. Going all the way back, it was the Union Bakery and Tap. It was connected to the brewery across the street. It's been several other bakeries, always affordable units for rent upstairs when it wasn't a hotel. We're also privileged to own 2 other buildings in this block. It's a very special block to us. And, you know, we intend to be very long-term owners and stewards of this property. We take it very seriously. You can go ahead, Ann. So I wanted to give you an idea of what would be going in upstairs. So without a second egress, and I'll explain to you in a minute why the egress has to be on that facade, but without a second egress, I'm allowed to put 4 units upstairs. So as soon as I touch the units upstairs in any way, and if I could take you on a tour, you would agree with me that they need to be renovated. So we're trying to put a lot, you know, to keep the spirit, the historical spirit of the building alive. We're trying to put as many small studio apartments as we can. So we're going to add or renovate this to be 7 small studio units on each floor. Our goal is that people who live there now will still be able to live there. We have people who wait tables at the Bluebird and cook pizzas at Polly Eyes, and those are the people who live there now, and we hope that they can still live there when we're done. But we have to make it a modern building in some regards, including having your own bathroom and kitchen, so you can, you know, have an apartment. So these are the studio apartments we'll be adding. If you'll, I'm going to grab a pointer. This is the existing access, which comes down on Market Street in that corner. Once you go above 4 units, you need to have your accesses, you need to have 2 accesses, 2 egress exits, and they have to be separated by a certain amount. So the interesting thing about this building is when it was added onto the brick wall, okay, that was the north wall of the original building, remains. So if I took you up into the attic, you would be able to look at the old building. The old roof is still there, the old wall is still there, and that's this thick spot right here running back and forth. So the only way to get a staircase through that is to go parallel to the hallway. So we go parallel to the hallway. That also just works best because it takes the least amount of living space away. When you go parallel to the hallway, you end up having to come out on Lynn Street. It makes sense for a number of reasons. So on the residential level, by far the best and possibly the only possible way to get out of this building with a second egress. And this is what, again, this is the same thing that Ann showed you. This is the bottom view. This staircase comes down and then comes down and right out of the building. So that's the second egress. If we don't have the ability to add that egress, we're still going to probably renovate the building, or someone will renovate the building, but you'll only be able to put 4 units in. So you'll put 2 units on this floor and 2 units on the top floor, and those will be 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom luxury student condos, like everywhere else in town. So to try to honor the history and what we like to do, which is not luxury student apartments. We're trying to add 14 units upstairs so that our total resident load will not go down nearly as much, and we can rent to the people who work in the neighborhood. If you could go ahead, Ann, thank you. On the commercial level, the reason that the south facade here does not work in any, economic, historic, or structural way is that if you tried to divide this space with a wall going this way, this is the kitchen. And when they added on to the building, they added on this L shape here. This is the original building, right where we're going to put the wall back that was originally there. And this original wall is still here. This thick wall is the original masonry wall. So when they added on this L shape, they put a basement under this whole section to the north, but they didn't excavate this. And in fact, it's above grade. So this kitchen is 18 inches higher. There's a ramp here and a ramp here to get out of the kitchen. If anybody's ever worked there or been in the kitchen, there are 2 ramps from the kitchen. So you end up with a situation where if you tried to make this the front of one of your businesses, you would literally have to go in and re-excavate the building. You would have to take this down to the level of the street outside. And just to move the kitchen in general, if you wanted to have a food use, if you wanted to start moving all of the plumbing and all of the electrical and all of the vent hood, just moving the vent hood would probably cost $100,000. So this would be hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to move the kitchen back to the back where maybe we wish it was. But it's not where we wish it was. It's where it's always been since this was added on to in 1892. The original ovens were right here. And in fact, we're doing some abatement work right now, and you can see where the original flue stacks were in this floor right here in this corner. This is the original bakery ovens, but when they added on, they moved the kitchen to this location. So historically, it makes sense to divide it down the original line, down the original wall that was always there. Economically, it's the only way that makes sense. So you end up with a staircase that's running down the dividing wall, connecting 3rd floor to 2nd floor to 1st floor, and right out onto Lynn Street. Go ahead, Ann. Thank you. Just to give you a little bit of the history of, again, why other openings aren't feasible. This is Don's central tap. These windows used to exist. You're looking at the north wall of the building here. You're looking like if you came in to the Goosetown doors that you're familiar with and looked back towards the back corner. This is the north wall of the building. Those windows aren't there anymore because we have a beautiful flower shop that was built right next to it. And in fact, this is the ad from the Press Citizen when they first built that building, and Don Alberhasky was trying to lease it out right after it was constructed. But those windows, that's just a brick wall now because of Willow and Stock's building, which is not a separate building. It's just, it shares our wall. You can go ahead, thank you. So we talked about, Ann already ran through this. We don't have to spend a lot of time. One option is, and this could be on this opening or this opening, is a swing out door that's flush to the front. If you have to have the outswing door for egress, you can't pull the door in. So once you start swinging out from the flush facade, you have to have a landing outside. We're very limited on the amount of right-of-way we have. So if you, the same way that the Merci, which is going to go into this building on the corner, they're also limited on their swing. So you're locked into sort of this railing and staircase down to the side, which is fine. And I think it's going to look really cute on their building, and they're okay with it. So that's option number 1. If you could go forward. Option number 2 is matching the idea of the stairs we already have, which is a recessed door. We would have a recessed door here. The landing would be within the building envelope. And then the stairs coming down would, again, look just like the stairs that are already there. This is, Megan spent hours with ChatGPT trying to get ChatGPT to draw what we were going for, and this is the closest we got. But this is an idea. It's not right because the transom would still be in here. Like you see here, the transom, I'm out of batteries. There's another 9-volt battery in there, big, thanks. The transom will still be there, and this will look, we're just taking out a clear piece of glass. It won't change the look, thank you, of the store going, of the storefront or the building going down the block there. Sorry. All right. So yeah, go ahead. Thank you, Ann. I just want to talk about fitting into the neighborhood and our shared history. So this is obviously right across the street from us. We're the two remaining buildings from the brewery era, right, in Iowa City. You guys know a lot about this, I'm sure. You know, the Union Brewery building with its beautiful, grand corner staircase, which wasn't always there, but which was brought back. And they have a second door, just like we're wanting a second door. Theirs isn't used currently, but that door is in their facade, and no one walks by the Union Brewery and says, I wonder if this is one building or two buildings. It's obviously one beautiful building with two entrances off of Lynn Street. One's not currently used. If you look at Market Street, the Union Brewery has a number of entrances, and all of them are the style that I'm describing, where the stairs sweep out from the building instead of turning immediately with a railing. They all sweep right out onto the sidewalk on Market Street. Go ahead, Ann, thank you. I just want to give you a little bit, and I don't want to wade too far into the weeds here. This is the Union Brewery building in the 70s before they made it look historic again. You'll see they didn't have the corner stairs. They didn't have the other door. All these doors were various mashups of whatever. They had replacement windows, just like the building we own has replacement windows, and they went back in and put in windows that look historic and a door that looks historic and this beautiful corner entrance. And this is like I don't know, maybe you guys don't like this building. I really like this building. The reason that we're a little more constrained is this reason right here, and I don't want to waste your time. If you take the public right-of-way, and by the way, Ron Knucke does not get into designing the right-of-way with applicants before your approval. That's why he hasn't approved it. I talked to him yesterday. He said it shouldn't be a problem, but he just doesn't give the approval because he doesn't want to waste his time if you guys, go the other way. So the right-of-way, the sidewalk in the right-of-way in front of, so this is this corner right here. The sidewalk is here. As it shifts across Market Street, the sidewalk shifts 2 feet to the west. So the walking part of the sidewalk along Lynn Street shifts, and it's very obvious. You don't notice it when you cross the street because you're just flowing across the street. But next time you're there, if you look down the sidewalk, you'll see the sidewalk in front of Marco's and Paper Crane and this whole building is here. When you get to our side of the street, it shifts 2 feet this way. So we have to stay off of that sidewalk. So that'll be the line that Ron and Public Works says you can't obviously impinge on the sidewalk. So we need to get up and off of the sidewalk elevation and into our building in a hurry, which again is why we need to set our door back. We can't have the landing out because then we're out of space. So I just wanted to show you that little detail. I don't know why it's like that, but as you cross Market Street, you shift over. It's about 21 inches to 2 feet to the west. You can go ahead, Ann. Thank you. So this is really the view that you'll see as you're on Lynn Street, as you're on the most beautiful corner in our beautiful city. As you come across the street, this is what you'll see. These are the steps up into what will once again be a bakery. If we're able to do this, we have people lined up who are going to operate a beautiful bakery in this space. If we're able to split it, and we have people that are very excited to lease the other side too. And I can't say too much about it, but where the bushes are is where we want to add a matching staircase. So it would be a matching set of recessed doors. The stairs would match these stairs as you came down the right-of-way, again, staying off the sidewalk, obviously. And you'd be able to walk right up into either your unit upstairs or come down out of your unit or into the other commercial space over here. And, I can tell you, this is not like, I'm not trying to make a threat or anything. The reality economically is without this entrance, again, you're going to get 4 luxury student condos upstairs, and you're going to get a bar in this space because the only people that can afford big commercial spaces in Iowa City are people that sell alcohol. So we didn't want to go that direction. We wanted a bakery because that's what this was originally. We thought it'd be neat to bring it back. And so we've lined up some wonderful young bakers here who have a home bakery in Iowa City and are looking to expand into a physical space of their own. So anyway, that's what you would see when you look down. No, go ahead. Just, again, a little note about recessed doors. When you walk down your favorite strips in Iowa City, every door is recessed. These are recessed because you can't swing your door out into the sidewalk. This is the Parkside building, which is just a block away from us. Same vintage of building. This is their main front door. You walk right up. It's hard to see because the door is black, but that door is recessed 3 feet back into the building. Again, you swing the door out and you come down the stairs. So this would not look out of place at all in Iowa City or in our neighborhood. So, yeah, I think is there one more? Yeah, so I just wanted to, this is just a cool little thing I wanted to tell you. I don't know, you know all the history. So there's an elevator in Brewery Square that goes down, or it used to be an elevator, now you take a ladder. But halfway down to the beer caves, there's this strange cutout in the wall. And what that was to get the kegs across the street to the tap without being taxed or later when it was illegal. So this is my daughter. The basement wall between the new and old parts of the basement was just punched out sort of unceremoniously. But what we intend to do is, this cooler will be coming out, but we intend to try to see where this used to go. And maybe someday that'll be a neat historic tour feature of our neighborhood. That's my spiel. I'm sorry that I talk so much. I'm a teacher, and I always set a timer for 5 minutes, and if I'm still talking, my students know they can tell me to shut up. So that was longer than 5 minutes, and I thank you for your attention. It cost me about $25,000 a month in lost rent for a delay. So I'm asking you at this meeting to either say yes, we will, I don't know that this is an exception, but the experts, we will either grant you within the confines of the Secretary of Interior's guidelines, which we will absolutely stick to the letter, to the 10th degree, and we are happy to bring back the materials and show you and get everyone on board with that. But I need to know that I can put another entrance on this street because it completely changes the business plan for every level of this building if we can't put another entrance on Lynn Street. So I would respectfully ask that if you could make some kind of motion to approve a second entrance on Lynn Street limited to XYZ, that we will play by all the rules, obviously, and above and beyond. Happy to use any materials, happy to match anything. The existing Goosetown door, if you would call it that most recently, is actually painted tin all around it. So I don't know how historic that is, but if you tell me that that's what we want to do for historic reasons, we'll paint tin around the other doors. We'll do whatever we need to do. But like I said, it's kind of a choice between 4 luxury student condos and a lounge, or a bakery, a neat little shop next to it, and 14 affordable units upstairs. I hate to put it in those terms, but that's the reality of it. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have,
Can you go back to the motion?
okay, do we have any, commission questions for, oh, never mind. I will stop talking.
If you have questions for Peter, I have a few additional comments if I could.
Yeah,
I have a handout. Do you mind if I pass these over?
sure.
Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to, we only got the staff recommendation when your packet came out. So this is their analysis. Wanted to give a little more of our rationale and context for this. So I think Peter did a fantastic job of kind of lining out the why of this building and, the passion behind it. I think there's one of the things that kind of highlights why is this an historic landmark and why is it an enduring historic structure is because it's been able to maintain its viability throughout time. Over time it has expanded. It started as a small building on the corner. It got wrapped around when needs came about. And then now, it served as a boarding house, and it was basically looking to bring it into the 21st century the best way we can, trying to find the most sensitive ways of bringing it up to modern codes, modern standards to meet egress, to meet all of the life safety and protection, and to maintain economic viability. So As I mentioned, I'm Mike Nolan, I'm the principal of Horizon Architecture. We do a lot of historic work around the state. We do work with the state. We do work with other cities. So we are very familiar with the Secretary of Interior's historic preservation guidelines. It's a little bit different than what we're working with here with the city's historic guidelines. Basically, the Secretary of Interior's, I don't want to do too much explaining, but it's kind of a framework for here's how we want you to address properties. And then there's another portion of that where the preservation briefings. So what I want to do is just kind of talk a little more about how we developed the project. And, I think that Ann and Jessica did a great job of kind of laying out some of the concerns. And I think when we look at this, I don't think that we are asking for an exception. I think that we're well within the guidelines of the historic guidelines. So what we did here is kind of put together by kind of point by point, really starting under analysis. There were a few things that we wanted to address that we just don't necessarily agree with the way that it was presented, and we just wanted to give kind of an alternate or a little bit of different context on why we were kind of making the case that we have. There's a couple of notes on there. The first one is like the east facade, none of the openings have been altered. I don't agree with this, and I have a couple reasons for that. One is we don't know it was there because there are no historic photographs available of this building. We've looked through, I think Peter spent several times at the historic preservation, and there's nothing that shows what happened with that building. Additionally, I went over and as I looked at the images, can we get back to a picture of the facade of the building, perhaps? East side, please. So if you look closely, so you can see a difference. This is the original brick, which has a distinctive pattern and surface texture to it. If you look at the bottom, there's actually a different color in the mortar. There's a different color of the brick. I went out and looked at that closely. These bricks are actually an original full 8-inch width brick down at the bottom. This is clearly infill of a later date. It's a 7.5-inch brick. So, number one, this has obviously been altered at some point in the past. So I don't think that that's part of the historic portion of the building if there's concern about materials with that takeout. So that's just a basic thought there. Another thing we wanted to address, can we go to the Sanborn maps, please? So a note that was referenced with the Sanborn map says that there was never an entrance on the east side of the building. I don't think we can say that equivocally. Looking at the Sanborn maps, there's a couple of references on here, particularly this little dot right here. If you look at the legend, what that's actually telling is the type of construction of the building. And that shows up in a couple of different places. So we can't say equivocally from the Sanborn maps that there never was one way or another. So I would say to absolutely say there has never been an entrance on the east side of the building, we can't say that there wasn't one. We don't know. Given the fact that there's been some entrances or changes onto those storefronts, it's entirely possible that there was at some point. I'm not going to say that there was, but I don't think that we can say that there was not. Under section 3, so the staff report cites of the 10, there's 1 through 5 and a couple that are left out there. One of those historic guidelines, I think it's number 8, says, and this is note E under section 3, exterior and interior alterations to a historic building are generally needed as part of a rehabilitation project to ensure its continued use. So the guidelines understand that from time to time, historic buildings do need to be altered and changes can be appropriate when done in that manner. Again, I don't think that we're looking at an exception. I think that we are just looking at how we adhere to the guidelines based off of the preservation briefs. Section number 4, altering east facade of the second floor front would have a negative impact on historical character and significance of the building. Can we go back to a facade, please? As we look at the building, some of the concern is if we put another storefront on there, are we going to look at tall, narrow storefronts? What we see across the east facade of this building in particular is a pattern of opacity and voids. That's either the window or the opening on the corner. Particularly with the number 2, by recessing back, that's fine, we can go back to that. By recessing back, you can see that this door is kind of obscured in shadow. You got the little bit of the darkness of the window. Again, this is the opening we're looking to do. By pushing that door back, we're looking to keep the transom we're going to minimize the impact of that door. Again, looking at a flat elevation on an architectural drawing is a little deceiving about how we're actually going to be perceiving the building there. And then our pattern does not get interrupted in the vertical whatsoever. So the continuous building still maintains its shaping, massing, the historic character of the building. Again, trying to minimize the impact of putting an entrance right there. And as Peter talked about, we'd love to just keep the exterior exactly the way it is, but there are forces on the interior, the adaptive reuse and the renovation of the building, current building codes that are kind of pushing us to a direction where we have to do some of these interventions. I think Peter handled the southern facade pretty well. We did look at that. One of our big concerns is particularly with that brick wall. We looked at if we could bring a stairway out the other side, in addition to the disruption of the current space and the use on the first floor, we'd be then further damaging the historic character of that building and the historic assemblies by having to get into that brick wall that's in between the original buildings. And again, this number 6, the rhythm of the openings, we're not doing anything to adjust the rhythm of it, the openings, the spacing, the things along that line. I think if anything, we're doing the most sensitive way that we can do to get the current needs and the modern needs of the building, bring up the economic viability of the building. And also, we're looking at very minimal intervention. We would offer, there's a piece of wood trim down here, could take that, plenty of basement space. We'll be happy to salvage that material. If somebody wanted to, in the future, come back and put that window in and replace the brick, as a very common brick style, they'd be able to replace it. One of the things, if I'm doing an addition or doing an alteration, we want to do something that is reversible for the future. And what we're proposing here is a minimal intervention on the exterior of the building that would be 100% reversible at some point down the road. From the guidelines that were cited, I'm just going to kind of run through here. Minimal changes to distinctive material features, spaces, and spatial relationships. Agree. I think we're right in line with guideline number 1. Historic character of the property retained and preserved. I think that you can agree that what we're trying to do is keep historic character, historic function. You know, it's a little bit different, a modification, but I think we're in line with guideline number 2. No exception required. Property is a character of physical time and place, and talk about false historical development. I don't think we're talking about anything false in adding another entrance here. We're not saying that the building wasn't commercial. We're not saying anything different with that, so I don't think that we need an exception to number 3. Retain and preserve. So I think we're talking about by keeping the building functional and viable, we're preserving the character of the building, and we're carrying that for the future. Distinctive material finish and construction techniques will be preserved? Absolutely. The only thing that we're looking to take out is a small strip of non-historic brick. As I said, we can certainly preserve and keep that wood trim if somebody wanted to use that in the future. Deteriorated features will be repaired rather than replaced. The building's in good condition, so again, I don't think that's applicable what we're asking to do here. And then additional alterations will not destroy historic materials. I don't think we're destroying any features. Again, moderate intervention, and we'll be happy to retain any of that trim. So we're looking at that balance. The historic preservation guidelines understand that from time to time, changes of the building need to be made, and that's why they get to be, continue to be part of our stock of housing. So I would argue that we don't require an exception. We're really just like an up or down vote so that we can move forward. To Peter's point, talking to Public Works, is that they don't typically look at it until we have the right of way, until we know there's going to be a viable project moving forward. The same thing with the accessibility. We've had some preliminary conversations with the building department, which is really under their purview, and we have a viable path forward on that. So I don't think that that's something that would necessarily hold up an up or down vote from the Historic Preservation Commission. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
What are the accessibility options that you have in place?
So with getting into it, the existing building code, particularly for historic structures, by the letter of the law for if I were to build a new building, I need to have 60% or greater of my entrances would need to be accessible. So basically, if I have 3, I need to have 2 of those to be wheelchair accessible. By the existing building code for historic structures, I get a little bit of leeway from that. So part of this project is on the south side of the building. There's an existing ramp. We're going to go on the west side of the building. We're going to create an alternate accommodation at the alley level where the grade is much closer. And essentially that shared corridor on the back of the building that Peter pointed out, that's going to create right now the building is not, okay, we can call that south ramp accessible. The building is probably not truly accessible. We'll create a new true on-grade entrance and accessibility on the west side of the building.
So I'm sorry, so there's a shared entrance, according to your plan, there would be a shared entrance between the two storefront spaces on the west side of the building?
And could we flip back to the floor plan? Either one of them would be fine.
I'll take some questions.
There you go.
Yeah, so can we go to the other one actually? I'm sorry, being picky. So this is the alley, which we have an easement to access the building from here. So we're going to turn what is like a back door now, which is basically like where the cook would leave and smoke. We're going to turn that into an actual entrance, like with a true door, a glass door. You come in, you'll roll down right here if you're rolling, and then you'll be in a spot where you can get into both commercial spaces. This is a shared hallway anyway because it has the shared bathrooms. It's a little bit of a hall mall feel, like there's going to be some shared stuff. For instance, this office will be, as it looks now for the bakers, this office will be used by the other commercial tenant. They share the bathrooms. There's an entrance, a back entrance from both, and then if you're rolling in, you roll right out here. This grade is very flat, and then right out to Market Street here. So that's kind of what Mike was referencing was the residential units. So there's no way to get up. Like you can't roll to these residential units. So right now there's this huge staircase. We're going to add another staircase. The question for the building department will be, do we need to make a ramp out here just to get to a set of stairs? Which doesn't make any sense. And there are exceptions in the historic building code for not doing that. So that's what we're going to work through with the building department. But these areas will be totally accessible if you're rolling for sure.
How will the apartments, out of curiosity, be accessible?
You can't roll into the.
There's no way. So there won't be like an elevator addition
There
or
will
anything.
not be an elevator addition, yeah. There are other things that we're hoping to do on the horizon here
Sure, of
soon,
course.
and they will have elevators. This building, to put an elevator in
I
here.
understand, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, so two forms of egress to the upstairs, but you can't roll into the upstairs, yeah. I feel like there's been a lot of information.
No, we're used to it. We're plenty used to it. Don't worry about it.
You guys didn't glaze over at all. Like when I talk, it's
No,
really
it's-
5 minutes.
We're practiced.
It's an interesting, it's a very interesting project and proposal.
And this is maybe a soft, kind of easy question. Mike, you're in agreement that doing an entrance on that south side, you feel like that's not feasible?
I think to satisfy the requirement for separation distance. So when you put in a second entrance, you take the horizontal, basically a diagonal distance, and half of that distance is how far apart your stairs have to be. So there's not really a viable way for that stair to come down through here and meet that separation distance without, basically destroying the building. So yes, I don't think that to get that second egress for the stair, there's a viable option to come out the south side of the building.
Okay.
And saying you're going to go down. I'm so loud. Saying you're just me in general, yeah. Coming down those stairs on the north side. I'm just pointing, but you don't know where I'm pointing. On the east side, coming down, and then, like, if there were some kind of way to get around to the west side, would that like give two egresses to the? Like, would that give two ways out for the people who are living above? Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is the existing staircase.
Correct. Right. What I'm
so-
saying is those go out onto the south side, right?
These go out on to the south.
So one of the concerns is that you need to have the stairs on the east side so that there's enough distance between those two. But if they came down and you didn't have a door there, and you didn't have an exit out onto Lynn Street, could you walk around and exit to the west side of
That's
that?
the distance that he's talking about.
And
So there's
It's not just the distance between what the staircases are; it's the distance
also
between people
a travel
walking.
route. That you
Gotcha.
have.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can speak. So one other thing with that is that Again, I know you guys love the technical details of building code. Once I get into a protected means of egress, so once I get into this stairway, I'm in a 1 hour rated enclosure so that if there's fire on either side, I can get safely out of the building.
Right.
And I can't have any other entrances or doors into that other than out of the building. So if I were to wrap around to the west, because we did consider this, I wouldn't be able to use this hallway for anything other than egress access. So again, that's just really not a viable option with the way the building's set up. So essentially, once I get into that, I could, but then I'd have no other way to access the rest of the building.
And you can't have, or could you, like a hallway that goes along the east side that exits out. Do you know what I mean? That exits out that corner thing, and then you wouldn't have to even worry about this exit. Because that's, I think, the biggest, one of the biggest things for us is like to say you're not, to say there doesn't need to be an exception. I don't know that that's the case, just because putting a door in is
So, like
going
you
to need to be that.
You know when you go to Come and Go, like any new Come and Go, and you
Sure.
look through the glass and you just see a drywall wall behind it?
Yeah.
That's what you would have, because that would have to be continuously 1 hour fire rated. So you would have to build a wall here to get that hallway out the door.
That would be
And-
required.
Yeah.
There would be no exception to that.
No, not to the fire, not to the building code in that regard. So you could do what you're describing, and you would lose the visual from Lynn Street into this space, which would destroy the value of the commercial space,
And
and
you
it would
can't-
look
yeah.
really silly from Lynn Street.
And you can't put like windows or anything on that wall, like
You could
ways
put-
to look through it, right?
could
That
put
would give
1
you
hour-
the visual aspect of it without actually having to put an entrance on the side of the door or on the side of the building.
You could take a 4 foot wide hallway across here, and then you'd have to kick it over this way and deal with this window and do a whole bunch of stuff. And if you wanted to put glass in there, it would have to be fire rated glass, which is, so you could spend $100,000 on this hallway, which would just crush the value of this commercial space. And possibly, possibly you would have enough travel time to get out that door, or travel distance. That's just so suboptimal. It's suboptimal from looking in the building from the street, because again, we don't know if there was ever doors over here. And it's going to look great when you're on the street right here and you look down here and you see matching stairs coming out. It's going to look a lot nicer to do it that way than to look in to a hallway.
Now, the come and go argument that hits me in the heart. I understand.
Do you know why that is?
Yeah.
Why is
because
every
it's
come
a
and go
code
like
thing.
that? Yeah.
It was abused.
Easy.
It's stupid. Very stupid.
Margaret, do you have something to say?
Well, okay, so,
Yeah.
look, I am very sympathetic to the argument that delays are expensive, right? And I think it should be obvious that we really respect and trust staff guidance. So when the recommendation is for deferral for more time, whether it's time to consider alternatives to the new entrance or time to revise what that new entrance would look like, I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more on what that extra time might do. I mean, it sounds as though staff has some further changes, at the least, even if we approve the exception, it sounds like there are some further changes that you would like to see to the design of the additional door. Are you willing to talk a little bit more about some of the possibilities for that?
Yeah, let me bring up the. So this slide here shows both versions side by side. And on version 2, I talked about how we liked the entrance in this location here. And in version 1, it's in a different location. So one of the issues is we have 2 plan sets, right? And so if we can modify version 2 to actually look more like version 1 and have it look more like a storefront door as opposed to an interior vestibule, that's one thing that we would want to work on. And then I know Public Works, there's this kind of chicken and egg thing, who gets the approval first? I would like to have some understanding of what type of access is needed, and if if it's feasible to maintain that 5-foot sidewalk that Peter talked about in his presentation with the landings that they're proposing here. So I think we can get to, I think if we get a little bit more time, we can come back with a positive recommendation if we just have some more time to tweak a few things.
And that positive recommendation was based on the fact of, we're ignoring version 1. Is that correct?
Yeah, I
looking
thought
for a
Version
I was
combination.
trying to replace version 1 because when you look at these, this window is actually not the same size as this window. So one of the reasons we moved to this location is we wanted the bigger existing opening.
Right.
If the concern is from Ann or whoever that when you look in here, and like to Mike's point, it's going to be shaded. So, keeping with the look of the building, I think it's actually important to move the door back and have that vestibule because nowhere else on the building, on that facade, is there a door on the, exactly like what we had here. So moving them back into the shade will actually make it match. If the concern is that these doors need to be shifted left or right to make it look less like 2 doors and more like 1 door, we will make that work 100%. Like what I'm telling you is I will do whatever you guys need me to do to make this look in a way, but the facts remain. We're not changing any of the massing, any of the vertical elements, any of the horizontal elements. We're not changing any of that. All we're doing is adding these stairs and taking out a piece of glass and some non-historic brick so that
Changing
this
a
can
window to a door.
we're changing a window to, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're
Yeah.
changing a window to a space. Those doors would be in there either way, right? Even if we went to the other come and go plan and brought people along, you would look in the window and see those doors. So it's really just, is there a piece of glass there or not?
Have you thought about, to me, the biggest asset of this space is its space, not chopping it up and making money here and making money there. It seems like that's the biggest asset of this building. And I feel like the people, it's a hard situation, but the Icon building, the sister building, it seems like they have enhanced what was already there. They got awards for preservation. They weren't about changing what was there, but enhancing what was there and making the old shine. And honestly, I just feel like this building's 163 years old. And from the evidence I've seen, that east facade hasn't changed. And that's miraculous to me. That's the same facade that they saw 163 years ago. This was built during the Civil War. It's a landmark. It's on the National Register of Historic Places. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little worked up.
Yeah.
But
A couple of things you just said are, so this building is not from the Civil War. This half of the building is from the Civil War, right? So where this door is going was added 35 years afterwards. So yes, it's from 1890. We're putting back a wall on the interior that was there until the 1980s. Like this space was divided by a big brick wall. And I was telling Mike earlier, with the demo we're doing, you can see this steel beam in here that was put in the 80s holding up the bricks on the top 2 levels. It's crazy to see this. But this brick right here is the original brick wall, which was the outer wall of the original building. There's 2 steel beams running right here, from my pointer backwards into the building, holding that up. This was 2 spaces, until the 1980s. And it's been posited that you got from one space to the other by entering and walking through. We don't know that for sure. What we do know is, as Mike said, these bricks are not original along the bottom of these, so these openings have been modified. And like I said, I hear you. Like you walk into Goosetown and you're like, this is a really cool space. It's a big space. And the only kind of business that can survive, we're not in this to make a ton of money. We're about capital preservation for ourselves. We don't raise rents of our tenants more than CPI. And if we make enough money in a given year, we don't raise the rents of our tenants. You could go ask any of our commercial tenants or any of our residential tenants what they think of us as money-grubbing landlords, and they're going to say, no, that's not who they are. So this isn't about creating more rent for ourselves. This is about letting our business tenants succeed, because the only business tenants that can succeed in this space, unless we just give it away, are serving alcohol. And
I don't agree with that either. I guess I just have faith that there's somebody out there. I do, again, look at the sister building, Icon. To me, it feels like they've kind of preserved that open feel, and they're making, I mean, it's not a bar. It's there for education and arts. And I feel like this space could be that too. I love the idea of a bakery. I do. But I guess we can't say anything about the interior, but this that's happening on the exterior is just another extension of chopping up historic space. And then we need this on the outside now too. It doesn't sit right with me. That's just my personal feeling.
I understand that and I respect that. I mean, I hope you come back to the fact that you cannot touch anything in the building. You cannot touch the residences. They're rooms with one shared toilet for 10 people. You can't touch any of that without letting them get out onto Lynn Street. So we're trying to minimize the effect of all of that. And if you came back and said, hey, I want this, like you said, you can't talk about the inside, but I have this great tenant who wants to run an art or an educational, I'm a teacher. I mean, I would love, let's move a school in here. That's great. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Can you,
Icon,
what are some of your other properties?
So on Lynn Street, we own 211 and 213, which is where the Sacred Collective, a nonprofit, is. So it goes this building, Willow and Stock, Bricks, Sacred Collective, then Merci, which I showed you, which they're going to develop into a store and a bistro maybe.
Okay.
And then across the alley, we bought that building.
Okay.
We're going to be turning over tenants because we're developing another property that'll better fit our commercial tenant in that building, who's a friend of ours. In Iowa City, that's, that we own on Lynn Street, and that's, we own a few townhomes on the east side here and there, but we're selling those currently to finance the renovation here, so.
And I do appreciate your enthusiasm and wanting to work within the city and for the community. And I appreciate that you're a teacher too. Yeah, I've said a lot, and we've all said, yeah, there's been a lot.
Where are we at in Robert's rules?
Great question. Currently, I think are we asking him questions? But if we need to make a motion, we can do that. But it is seemingly torn about what that motion would be. You're asking us for full approval. You're recommending deferral.
I'm not asking for full approval.
You're asking for approval of the idea that we would allow a change to the east side.
Pending approval of, I'll come back with all of our mock-up and materials and everything else.
Right.
I'd like to have commission discussion at some point.
Yes, me too.
Right. Yeah. But we need a motion before we need to be able to discuss in motion before we can do a discussion, right? Yeah.
It's just probably they would not participate in your discussion.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Seligren moves to recommend deferral of this application to allow staff and the applicant time to revise the plans to align with the guidelines. If the Historic Preservation Commission is.
Sorry, just the
Thank
first
you.
one. Thanks.
Second?
You don't wait a second. Sorry.
Okay. I just want to comment that I like, if of the two options, I agree that the exterior presentation of option 2 is better, but the way the doors are set in is worse. And so if the staff prefers a combination of the two with the front facing, 3-sided stairway with the option 1 door, so it's not like so the two doors aren't visible
Right.
the same. So like some combination of that, I feel like would be much less jarring. Just based on the drawings, I feel like the drawings of the way the door fits with the two doors behind it in option 2 do not look right. So knowing that staff is kind of in line with that I would,
Be more inclined to.
I'd be inclined to.
So saying, basically, version 1, again, we're ignoring. You're just saying if we're going to have, wait, sorry.
It's the doors of version 1.
The doors of version, meaning we want it to look like a storefront, even if you're walking into a vestibule with 2 different doors that go one in the other. Does that make sense? Is that the concern?
Yeah, I mean,
Wait, so the door would swing out, and then we'd go in, and there'd be 2 doors.
Right.
What you're saying?
Right.
instead of it being open, then you see the two doors with the split in the middle.
Space where the glass is.
Right.
Okay.
Like a little bit like what we would see on the paper crane, where you walk in and you go one of each ways to get to the 2 different places. Right. I'm not saying that that's necessarily precedent. I don't know what we would have said to that project if that were a project. So that's a different thing altogether, but it would
Well,
be
and I
similar
kept
to that.
thinking if we did that, would it then match what's on? Because they had similar entrances across the street. Would that then match closely? Or
What example?
they had examples.
Or is-
The sister building?
yeah, the sister building.
Oh,
they
right,
had very
across-
similar
Across
entrances.
Market.
Yeah.
I gotcha, yeah.
Yeah, and I walk by this stretch all the time. I
Same.
live
Yeah.
very close to it. And I did tonight take a look at the sister building and the openings that are there. Those seem like in the past, it was maybe meant for heavy deliveries, the kegs or whatever. And it was not a door that pedestrians were using. It looks like they're just wooden doors meant to swing out, get something in, close up. There are no stairs leading up to those doors.
This is along Market or along Lynn?
This is the old La James
Market.
building.
Yeah.
Market.
Yeah, on Market Street, along
It's
Market
on
Street.
Lynn.
Okay.
Or yeah,
Lynn.
Lynn, sorry.
So the same space that the paper crane is now in.
Yeah.
You walk by there, there are doors. They're big, wooden, heavy doors, not meant for any pedestrian to be swinging open. I think it was meant at one time maybe for the kegs or whatever else they had to move in there. It was just a temporary quick thing. Those were not meant for pedestrians. There are no stairs leading up to those doors. I'm just assuming. And I think we do need to think about, so back in the day, walking was still the major means of getting about town when this building was built. I think we can argue that that's still the case today for this area of town. There are pedestrians through there all the time. How might this interrupt the flow?
There's a bush.
Currently,
but
there's a
bush
planter with
bush
two big
there.
bushes. So it's that kind of point is kind of moot.
Yeah, it's not going to impact
given what's
anything.
currently there.
But people dropping out and, excuse me.
But couldn't you
Like the
say that about
traffic
like?
kind of thing, yeah.
Well,
And I,
Oh,
I would say the same thing's true when the patio furniture's out there with the restaurants. It just makes the sidewalk even smaller, right? So I don't think it's not taking up any less or more space than it's already taken up because the bushes are already in that same. And if I'm looking at the map correct or the layout correctly, it doesn't come out past where the bushes little barrier is, correct, for the
And-
flower bed.
And I would imagine not past the stairs on the current corner are?
I'd hope it matched completely.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So-
I think that's,
I feel like there's city guidelines that say they would have to match.
yeah, I think that was the
that's
point with the walkway shifting.
The
or
right of
whatever.
way.
Yeah, yeah. But that's a question I don't know if we.
As far
answer to.
as
We can
adding
do
a
that.
door goes, this is my thought. If it looks really good and it's structurally sound and the interior changes 400 times between now and, when the building falls down and the world ends or whatever, an additional entrance is not going to be the end of the world. And if it looks, I think the idea for me here is that there's a very strict historical standards that are followed in term like replicating what the historical standards would be. In following the guidelines and making working with staff to make sure that the materials and the presentation is consistent with what it should be. But in terms of like altering the use or adding more pedestrian movement, I don't personally see an issue with those things because I do think that they could, you're not going to, you know, the space, whether it's divided into two spaces, could then be changed back into potentially another, a single space in the future, and the door would stay. Would it, you know, what, I don't know, would it be so wrong? I don't know. I guess I just want, I want to be, I get you. I just want to be, I don't know. I think there are so many elements to this issue, and maybe I don't have all the information I need, but I think that all the things considered, the affordable housing, the code requirements, all the things considered, and then in terms of like creating something that you can't then remove in the future, a door that looks beautiful, that's very well done, which I would assume and hope that it would not be the end of the world. That's my thought.
And aligning with what's currently there to look historic, right? That's the.
So when you ask to gauge the committee's receptiveness, do you mean you want us to take like a straw vote, or what is useful, just hearing the conversation?
To me, when I read the things on the screen, the second part of the second one is what would be that more of a straw poll, I think, than the first one, because the first one is saying we're going to just turn it back to the staff to figure out something else and bring back to us.
Whereas, the second is...
The other one is saying we are inclined to do a door, but we want more work done to make it up for how it would look or what it might include.
Yeah. So the vote is yes or no,
Would we approve?
would we approve?
Well,
right
the
now,
vote is
or-
the staff recommendation is to defer.
Right.
And as
Sorry,
part of your
sorry,
comment,
but yeah.
as part of your commentary, if you could kind of imply if you're open to the entrance, that would be helpful on the east side.
If staff recommended approval of the new designed entrance, would we be inclined to?
Do we need a motion for that second part?
no.
this would
We just
be
kind of
talking
wanna
about
hear
That's an
your-
explanation, is the
Just-
second part?
Why would we?
The-
Or I'm thinking this is two motions on the same screen
No,
here.
it's
so-
one motion to defer, and as you discuss, if you could kind of state like
Okay, like what
Jordan just did,
yeah.
that it sounds like she is open to a storefront on the east side.
I feel like I could have also fallen for two emotional tactics: the come and go tactic, and then the bar tactic, or the idea that like it could become a vape shop if it's unaffordable, and that does sound like a reasonable argument to me. It has been vacant for how long? 2 years now? A year? Vacant as far as public entrance go. You know, it's not been open. I don't know.
Kevin, do you have any?
Yes, Burford, I can see the practical need for that egress entrance. And a plus for me is that the fact that it would be potentially restorable at some future date if someone wanted to go back and undo the door.
So you prefer the egress? The version one,
I
version two?
I would be supportive of version 2, generally speaking, yes.
With the assumption, we're talking version 2 doesn't mean what version 2 looks like. Version 2 means after they've changed it to match the fact that it looks like one door, you're going into one building, and then when you go in, whatever happens, it happens. But
Is that what you're saying?
is that right? It's not that you're pulling back. It's not that you're just saying version 2, great, let's move on, and saying version 2, but with the additions.
Well, I prefer the version where the steps go immediately into the door rather than going up the side of the building. And
Yeah.
I'm concerned too. I still feel like there's a disconnect between hearing a door on the south side is not possible, but then hearing from staff, a door on the south side is possible. I know we went through different,
We don't know what the other option is.
Just to clarify, staff did not determine that a door
Okay.
on the south side is possible. It was our comment to the applicant if they explored that south facade.
So what's
It was a
the-
question.
okay.
Can I ask the staff questions now, or are we just talking to ourselves?
I don't know, and we have a hand raised. Is this a thing? Yeah.
I think it's commission discussion at this point.
Okay, so we're just at commission discussion for this?
Well, I guess my question then to you all is,
Sure.
isn't this the same problem on the south side if we're putting a door there versus on the side that's on the street? Like,
I think
where
the
The
there's-
south
issue is
side has
stuff had
been
already been
altered.
altered, right?
it's already been,
This
okay.
east
Yes, I
side-
see what you're saying. Okay.
In my mind, it looked this way.
Yeah, I hear
Like,
you. Okay.
yeah,
I mean, even
that's amazing to me.
both arguments of saying it wasn't there, it was there, we don't
We're a
know.
commission that could protect that.
Yeah.
I think we are protecting it if we allow a door there. I mean, these windows aren't historic windows.
They're
I don't
not.
think. So by being able to replace it with a door, I think it's still
Look what
preserving
the
it.
sister building did with their windows.
Burford
know.
again, also the, I forgot what I was going to say. In the architectural rendering, I didn't see it, I didn't see it as two structures. When you see it in reality, you can kind of see it's two buildings abutted together.
Yep.
So the door is less problematic to me for that reason. It's not like.
But maybe we want to make sure that it's enhanced as a complete unit. I get that we got the north and we got the south, but yeah.
I think there needs to be an argument though, but if it's not going to be a usable building
Right.
without that door,
But
then
it
what does
could
it
be.
do? But then what does it do to the city? Because we see an issue. I don't know if we can weigh in on this, but we see this happening right now all the time where places are getting priced out and they're leaving and they're just staying vacant. So if there's a solution to bring in local businesses to these areas that we all love to visit and also still protect the historic property, I just don't get why. For me, it's just, I would approve it. Yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, I do think we have to consider like progress, what our economy looks like, what people are willing and able to pay in this town, and how the downtown is currently looking with people being evicted left and right because rents are being raised so high, and storefronts being vacated by original tenants and replaced with vape shops. You know. That's the worst fate I could imagine on this corner, and I think we potentially,
But I
have
feel
an
like-
opportunity to create a more community focused, smaller space here that's highly functional, and then also could be reverted back to a larger space if needed. I assume it would just be a drywall divider and not a brick wall. I mean, I just don't
Just
think-
feeling like the chopping up of old homes too on the historic north side a little bit to me. And I think too,
I get that, yeah.
we're kind of saying like, oh, we better go with this because we don't think the best scenario for this space will come along.
Yeah, I mean, I am
feel
getting a
like
little
it
fear
could.
tactic right now.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
But I
it's
also
scary
have
times.
been watching it empty for how many years?
2
And
years now.
And it's like, look what they do in the summer. They close the street, and there's this empty space that is not being used. Where if there was a bakery and I don't know what else, but those would attract more people to that community space that gets shut down. Like that is a great space, but there's only like 3 places to go to when you're there, because the Webster is not somewhere you just can walk into like as easy, right? So. I mean, I would say I'm inclined to say yes if we figure out the door situation, which I like option 2 with the stairs, but how do we make that? But
yeah, I like the option of making more spaces. I don't necessarily agree with the threat of a bar. I don't know, but that's not a real consideration for me right now because it's not current.
Depends on the bar.
Fine. It doesn't. The bar for me is like it's like, oh, okay, maybe it's a bar, maybe it's something else. Well, I will not know that until it's there. But
Right.
leaving the option for something to go there is good. I agree with the fact that it has been empty for a while. It would be nice if it was there. Right now, it is just a planter. I'm not saying that's bad, but it is still being taken up by something. Having more access to that would be fine, as long as it is something that is version 2, looks like it is one door that goes into the building. I think making it the 2 immediately when you go up is again a problem. This seems to be something that
and
they're amenable to. I don't know.
affordable housing, right? That is nicer, because look at the places that are affordable in town,
Sure.
right? So I would rather live in a renovated place in an old building than, right? So, I mean, I live in a house was one of those houses was divided and is in the middle of trying to be not divided. And I wish that it had, we were able to buy that way. So moving into something, if I was to live in one of these apartments, which I wouldn't, but it would be nice to have a nice space and have my own bathroom, right? Like,
So it sounds like we're inclined, at least this is my feeling right now. It sounds like we are inclined to say yes-ish to an entrance there if it follows the guidelines and everything gets approved. What does that mean for us right now? Do we want to defer this and wait for a plan that looks like what we look at, or that sounds like what?
I mean, I would vote, I would go with the staff's
favor of
approval to
deferring.
defer, but it's assuming that staff will work with the applicant on what was discussed tonight.
Okay. Do we want to vote, or do we feel like we've said enough, or do we want to discuss more, or?
Do you feel like you got enough from us? Okay.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. I'll go on record as supporting an edited door, basically.
Okay. So right now, the motion is to defer this application until we see the plan for version 3 or something. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
I think it just means continue working with staff, but it sounds like you know what to do.
It also sounds like what we needed for Public Works to get moving on things was to see if we were inclined to approve. And it sounds like, this is what I was hearing before. Not if we approved, but if we were inclined to approve. And it sounds like that's what you have right now. And so Public Works can start moving on that, and that allows you to have a clearer plan for me as well. That's what that sounds like to me.
But we're very, very, if things are still up in the air, especially with a property as significant as this, we're not just going to give it's a big deal, but it's going to be a process anyway. So it sounds like you've got you've got the minutes to prove that we are
amenable.
But my impression is that staff will have some very clear recommendations on ways to modify the door you've proposed in these scenarios to make one that will satisfy staff and will be something that committee is inclined to vote yes on.
And we've got an architect on staff who can look at things too.
Right. And in the meantime, other parts of this can move forward that then, you're still gonna have to wait for those things to happen anyway as well. So this will go in line with that.
We do need an architect.
Right.
Well, staff architect.
The reason that it's problematic is because half of you said that you wanted the steps flowing out, and a lot of you said you wanted the door right at the facade, and you can't have both of those. So I'm worried that we're going to get to a design that works. If you have a door on the facade,
it has
then you have to have
it swings out, right? Yeah.
You have to swing out, you have to have the landing, and then you have to go down to the side.
Sure.
You don't have enough room. So I heard some people say I like it when it matches the stairs. I heard other people say I want the door on the facade.
Can there be one set-in door, and then you go in, and then there's?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That's not what.
Maybe there's a couple different options presented to staff. I don't know.
Right. Right now, again, we're looking at 2 different versions
Right.
and then saying what maybe could happen. I don't know that we've deferred for less. I think that's we just don't know what the plan would look like exactly.
Right.
And that's our
But it does sound to me, right, that we would approve something to make this happen.
Right.
It just is not the design that we would approve right now. But that we do think it's important to put the entrance on that side. That's my
Overall,
impression.
it sounds we're in favor of this project. It seems
Yeah.
interesting and it seems helpful.
I think if staff likes the plans, we also some of us are very inclined to like the plans, right? The issue is that right now, does this make sense? Like if this new staff recommendation for the revised door will be, we recommend you accept this door. It's not as though anything could happen over here, right? Sorry, I feel like I have made things worse. But do you see what I'm saying? You will talk to staff and you will have a clear path forward, surely, from that conversation. So I know that a lot of things have been pitched in this discussion, but but I think we, the experts, will work with you. Have I misspoken? Am I like, sorry, I feel like everyone is not, that I have made things worse.
No, you
but-
haven't, you haven't.
Okay.
You as a commissioner are telling staff that you want to work with us to make this happen, so staff must need to get.
That sounds like what I meant to say. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks you all.
Okay. Moving on.
Yes.
All right, to the report on certificates issued by chair and staff, starting with certificates of no material effect. The first one being 538 South Gilbert Street.
So yes, of course, this is the Close Mansion, and some of the wood trim around this window and around the front entry canopy is rotting, and so they'll be replacing that. Wait, okay. For minor review, this is 930 East College in the College Hill Conservation District here. It is the one that had the porch reconstructed last year, the porch wall, and around this side between it and the apartment to the side. Oh yeah, because usually I have the same screen.
See the arrow.
Which one? Around this side of the house is this window, and they're making it an egress window. And the top of the egress window well will match the brick on the house. This is Nicole's house. And the flat roofs, there's one here, and one around on the other side, I believe. And they will be replaced from basically what is probably some kind of a bitumen or rolled rubber roofing. They will replace it with a standing seam metal roof. This is kind of similar. This is the porch at 220 South Johnson, and its similar type of roof is going to be replaced, but just with a rubber membrane roof.
Okey-doke. Consideration of minutes for March 13th, 2025. Do we have any addenda? I don't know. if
No,
that's the
but
word.
next month's going to be a doozy.
Yeah.
Actually, this last month was probably a doozy. I didn't notice anything that was wrong.
We have a motion.
I wasn't there.
Celergon moved to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okey doke. Commission discussion, work plan update is on here. Sure, I have any updates for that?
No, not currently. Pretty soon I'll start on those map updates that I talked to you about.
My last meeting will be July of this year. And then I'm moving on. So there's going to be an at-large vacancy. And I will, what, you got it?
Nothing, just more that I might not be here for July, so on your last one,
God's
do you want to
sake.
be?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. I also might not be here for June, putting that out there, but,
Wait, your last one would be June.
It would be June?
Yeah.
oh. well,
July
then-
1st is the new.
then June still.
Oh, I thought I started in August. Okay.
You might have started late, maybe because your position just didn't fill in time
I
or
see,
something.
okay.
But no, everybody knew would start July 1st.
Okay, cool.
June still applies,
So,
we're good.
so we, at-large is probably fairly easy to fill, but
I know that we've actually already gotten one applicant that
Okay.
can fit in one district and at large. At large is easier to fill. We'll be sorry to see you go.
I will miss it. I might just come to the meetings and yap at you.
Yeah, go for it. Okey doke. And then, do we have a motion to adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.